The HOA president stood on my brick patio, screaming into her phone that I'd just murdered a man, while my gardener's body lay motionless 15 feet away, surrounded by paramedics fighting to save his life. This was supposed to be the morning I hung decorations for my 37th wedding anniversary party, the celebration Claudette and I had planned for months in our lakeside cabin, the home where we'd raised our kids and buried both our parents' ashes beneath the oak tree Veronica now wanted removed. But what this corporate lawyer from Atlanta didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that my wife wasn't just the quiet woman who baked cookies for neighborhood kids. Claudette Townsend was the Undersheriff of Polk County, the second highest-ranking law enforcement official in the region, and the direct supervisor of every deputy about to respond to Veronica's 911 call. If you've ever wondered how far a power-drunk HOA president will go to control your life, and what happens when they finally pick the wrong victim, this story will leave you speechless. Have you ever dealt with an HOA president who treated your property like their personal kingdom? Has your board ever fined you for something completely ridiculous? Do you know someone who's been bullied by their neighborhood Karen? Has an HOA violation ever ruined something important to you? This woman thought she controlled our entire lakeside community until she discovered one fatal mistake that would destroy everything she'd built. Stick around to see how her 911 call became the evidence that ended her reign of terror. If you've battled HOA abuse, smash that like button right now. You're about to watch this Karen face consequences she never saw coming. Now let me take you back 4 days earlier to when this nightmare began. The certified letter arrived on Monday morning, 4 days before our anniversary party. And the moment I opened it, I knew our peaceful retirement was over. I stood on my front porch at 7:15 a.m., coffee cooling on the railing, watching morning mist rise off the lake behind my cabin. Coral Pines, Florida. Gated community, 87 homes, royal palms lining every driveway like sentries. This place had been paradise for 12 years. The envelope was thick, official. The return address said Coral Pines Homeowners Association. I tore it open. Immediate compliance required. Royal palm fronds exceed approved height standards. Fine, $700. Payment due within 48 hours, or daily penalties of $350 will accrue, doubling every 24 hours thereafter. $700. For palm fronds. I read it twice, then a third time. My hands tightened on the paper. I'm Gerald Townsend, 64 years old, retired firefighter, 32 years with Polk County Fire Rescue, married to Claudette for 37 years. 2 grown kids, 3 grandchildren. I spent 3 decades running into burning buildings to save people. I'd seen chaos. I'd seen tragedy. I'd seen good people lose everything to flames they didn't start. But this was different. I looked at my palms, same trees I'd had trimmed every year for over a decade. Same trees that every other house on this street had. Nothing had changed. The fronds hung over the roofline maybe 6 inches, maybe. $700. The fine was more than I'd paid the tree service last year. Inside the house, anniversary decorations sat in boxes by the door. Balloons, streamers. A welcome banner for Claudette's family flying in from Michigan. 40 guests confirmed. Catering deposit already paid. Thursday at 3 p.m., 4 days away. 37 years of marriage. Through firefighter schedules that kept me away for days. Through Claudette's cancer scare 6 years ago. Through raising 2 kids on paychecks that never quite stretched far enough. This party mattered. And now this. The signature at the bottom caught my eye. Veronica Ashford, HOA President. I didn't recognize the name. Our previous president, Bill Henderson, retired accountant, reasonable guy, had stepped down 6 months ago. His wife passed. He moved to Tennessee to be near his daughter. There'd been talk of an election, but I'd missed it. Claudette and I were visiting our daughter in North Carolina that week. So, who was Veronica Ashford? I pulled out my phone. Checked the community Facebook group. Nothing. Checked next door. One post from 3 months ago. Excited to serve as your new HOA president. Looking forward to elevating our community standards. Elevating. I didn't like that word. The notice had a deadline. 48 hours. If I didn't pay by Wednesday morning, the fine jumped to $1,050. By Thursday, party day, it'd be $1,750. By Friday, $3,750. My base boat sat tied at the dock, morning sun glinting off the water. Neighbors' sprinklers created tiny rainbows in the dewy grass across the street. Everything looked exactly like it had yesterday, like it had for 12 years. But something had changed. I'm not a fighter. Never have been. 32 years as a firefighter taught me that most problems get solved through calm communication, through teamwork, through showing up and doing the work. So I'd call this Veronica Ashford. Explain the situation, offer to trim the palms immediately, request a fee waiver or maybe a payment plan. Reasonable people can work things out. I dialed the number on the letterhead. 3 rings. Then a woman's voice, sharp and clipped. Coral Pines HOA. Good morning. This is Gerald Townsend at 4782 Lakeside Drive. I received a violation notice this morning, and I'd like to discuss Mr. Townsend. She cut me off. Cold, precise. You signed the community bylaws when you purchased your property. The fine stands. You have 47 hours. Ma'am, I've lived here 12 years. I've always maintained my property. If there's an issue with the palms, I'm happy to address it, but $700 seems... Click. She hung up. I stared at my phone. 47 hours. Not, let's work this out. Not, can we schedule an inspection? Not even, have a nice day. Just a deadline and a dial tone. I looked at the letter again, at the signature, at the words immediate compliance required in bold letters at the top. This wasn't about palm trees. This was about power. Have you ever received a fine that made absolutely no sense? What did you do? Drop it in the comments. She arrived at my door at 6:47 a.m. Tuesday, unannounced, uninvited, and acting like she owned every inch of my property line. I was pouring my first coffee when the doorbell rang. Claudette was already gone, left for work at 6:15, still wearing her Undersheriff uniform. Tuesday morning briefing started at 7 a.m. sharp. I opened the door. She stood there in a pressed navy pantsuit, clipboard held like a weapon, diamond tennis bracelet catching the early light. 40-something. Blonde hair pulled back tight. Designer handbag, Louis Vuitton, the kind Claudette looked at in stores but never bought. Behind her in my driveway sat a black BMW X5, engine still running. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Cold, gray, calculating. Mr. Townsend. Not a question. A statement. I'm Veronica Ashford, HOA president. We need to talk. I kept my voice level. 32 years of dealing with fire scenes taught me never to escalate. Ms. Ashford, I tried calling yesterday to discuss the violation notice. I don't appreciate being ignored, she interrupted, stepping closer. I called you. You hung up on me. You hung up on me, I corrected. And I didn't hang up. You ended the call. Her jaw tightened. Semantics. The fine is now $1,050. You have 23 hours. 23 hours. The deadline had passed midnight. The fine had doubled. Behind her, across the street, I saw Mrs. Henderson, 78, widow, lived here since the community opened, peeking through her curtains. She saw me looking and quickly disappeared. The same terrified look I'd soon see on other faces. "Miss Ashford, I'd like to resolve this. I can have the palms trimmed by tomorrow morning. If there's a compliance issue..." She wasn't listening. She walked past me, off my porch, onto my property. No permission asked. She moved along my driveway, eyes scanning, clipboard out. She stopped at my mailbox, ran her finger along the post, frowned, wrote something down. "Mailbox post shows weathering. That's a $200 fine." She moved to my dock, crouched down, examined the cleats where my base boat tied off. "Dock cleats need repainting. $150. She turned toward my side yard, spotted my garden hose coiled against the house. Garden hose visible from street, not permitted under aesthetic guidelines. $100. I stepped off the porch. "Ma'am, you're on my property without permission. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." She turned. That smile again. Predatory. "Mr. Townsend, as HOA president, I have authority to conduct property inspections to ensure compliance with community standards. Your refusal to cooperate will be noted in my report." She walked back to her clipboard, added more notes. "Your total balance is now $1,450. However," she looked up, "I'm feeling generous this morning. Pay the original $700 by tonight, and I'll waive the additional violations." Generous. My coffee had gone cold in my hand. "I'll need to review the bylaws," I said carefully. "I don't recall these specific violations being..." "The bylaws are available at the HOA office during business hours, Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. She clicked her pen, smiled. "Of course, by Thursday your balance will be considerably higher." She started walking back to her BMW, paused at my mailbox again, ran her finger along it one more time, wrote something else. Then she turned back. "Mr. Townsend, I've scheduled a property inspection for Thursday at 2 p.m. to ensure full compliance before your..." She glanced at the anniversary banner still in its box by my door. "What little party?" "Thursday, 2 p.m. My anniversary party started at 3 p.m. "I'm sure you understand," she continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We have standards to maintain. Other homeowners have already learned to comply. 7 properties are currently under enforcement actions. You're not special." She got into her BMW, started the engine. I stood there, heart pounding, watching her drive away. 7 properties. Under enforcement. She'd said it like she was proud. This wasn't about palm trees or mailbox posts. This was about control, about power, about a woman who'd found a little authority and decided to wield it like a club. I looked across the street. Mrs. Henderson's curtains were closed now, completely. That terrified look made sense suddenly. She'd already been through this. Have you ever met someone who confused a volunteer position with actual authority? Tell me about it below. I spent Tuesday afternoon knocking on doors, and what I discovered turned my confusion into cold fury. First stop, Mrs. Henderson. She answered after the third knock, door open just a crack, chain still on. Gerald. Her voice shook. Did she come to your house too? This morning. Can we talk? She let me in. Her living room looked different. Empty spaces on the mantel. Bare spots in the flower beds outside the window. The gnomes, she whispered. Harold bought them for our 40th anniversary, 23 years ago. Little ceramic gnomes for the garden. She said they violated aesthetic standards. $1,200 in fines. $1,200. For garden gnomes. I couldn't afford it, Mrs. Henderson continued, her eyes wet. My pension barely covers the mortgage. Harold's life insurance paid for his funeral, but there wasn't much left. She said if I didn't pay, she'd put a lien on the house. So I removed them. Every single one. Harold's gnomes. Gone. Her hands trembled as she showed me the violation notices. 17 of them, spanning 5 months. She won't stop, Gerald. Even after I removed them, she found other things. My doormat was the wrong color. My porch light was too bright. My mailbox flag squeaked. $500 here, $300 there. I finally paid everything. Sold Harold's coin collection to cover it. But I still see her drive by. Slowly, looking. I left Mrs. Henderson's house with copies of her notices. My hands were shaking too. Next stop, Tom Briggs, 3 houses down. Tom answered the door in his VA hospital shirt. Disabled vet, lost part of his left leg in Afghanistan, worked part-time at the VA clinic in Lakeland. "You got one too?" he said when he saw my face. "This morning." He let me in. His kitchen table was covered in papers, violation notices, payment receipts, letters from attorneys. $900, Tom said, pointing to his flagpole in the front yard. American flag, POW, MIA flag beneath it. She said it exceeds approved dimensions, said the POW flag wasn't authorized. His hands clenched into fists. That flag was given to me by the VA at my retirement ceremony. It's regulation size, standard 3x5. I checked the bylaws. There's no dimensional restriction on flags. Nothing. But she wrote a new interpretation. Said anything over 30 inches wide requires board approval. Tom showed me the notices. 17 of them, same as Mrs. Henderson, issued over 5 months. The $900 drained my disability check for 2 months. My wife works at Target to make up the difference. We've got 2 kids in high school. We can't afford this. He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Gerald, she told me in June, said it to my face, that if I didn't pay, she'd make my life so miserable I'd be forced to sell. Said she had connections at the county, could make problems disappear, or create them." That last part hit me like cold water. She had connections, could create problems. My wife was the undersheriff. If Veronica knew that, would she still have come to my door? Last stop, the Chens. Young family. 2 kids under 10. Mrs. Chen answered, baby on her hip, her 5-year-old peeking from behind her legs. "Mr. Townsend, please, come in." Their backyard was empty. A square of fresh grass showed where something had been removed recently. "The swing set," Mr. Chen said, joining us. "We bought it for our daughter's birthday. Cost us $400. Veronica said it was visible from the street. Not allowed. $1,500 in fines. We couldn't pay. She threatened foreclosure. Foreclosure over a swing set. We removed it last week," Mrs. Chen said quietly, her voice breaking. "Our daughter cried for 3 days. She doesn't understand why we took away her birthday present." They showed me their notices too. 10 of them. 3 months. By the time I left the Chens, the sun was setting. I had copies of violation notices from 3 families. But there were more. I stopped at 2 more houses, same story, different violations. By nightfall, I'd talked to 8 families total. 8 families targeted in 3 months. Total fines issued, $11,300. 3 families had already sold their homes at a loss. Couldn't afford to fight. Couldn't afford to pay. Just left. 1 elderly couple was facing foreclosure. Bank had sent notices. I sat in my truck in my driveway, papers spread across the passenger seat, and did the math. Veronica Ashford had been HOA president for 3 months. She'd terrorized 8 families. She'd collected thousands in fines. She'd forced 3 families to sell. And she'd done it all while claiming she was elevating community standards. The pattern was clear. Retirees on fixed incomes, veterans on disability, young families with kids. People she thought were vulnerable. People she thought wouldn't fight back. I pulled out my phone, sent a text to Tom, Mrs. Henderson, and Mr. Chen. Emergency meeting, my house, tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Bring all your paperwork. We're going to stop her. 3 responses came back within minutes. All said the same thing. We'll be there. I looked up at my cabin, at the anniversary decorations still waiting in boxes, at the palms Veronica was so obsessed with. This wasn't just about my party anymore. This was about protecting my community from a predator. If you discovered multiple neighbors were being targeted by the same bully, would you organize them to fight back? What would your first move be? My wife listened to everything, then said 6 words that changed the entire game. Gerald, I need to stay out of this. It was Tuesday night, 9:12 p.m. Claudette sat across from me at our kitchen table, still in her uniform, badge catching the overhead light. She'd been Undersheriff of Polk County for 4 years, 28 years in law enforcement total. She supervised 620 deputies. She supervised the sheriff himself on most operational matters. And she was telling me she couldn't help. If I get involved now, she explained, her voice carrying that weight I'd heard 1,000 times over 37 years of marriage. Veronica will claim harassment, abuse of power. She'll say I'm using my badge to intimidate her because my husband broke HOA rules. But I didn't break, I know. Claudette reached across the table, took my hand. But that's not how it'll play. She's an attorney, Gerald. Corporate litigation, she knows how to twist things. If I step in, even to advise you, she'll make it about me, not about her harassment, not about the illegal fines, about me. I squeezed her hand. So what do? You document everything. Her voice shifted. Professional now. This wasn't my wife talking. This was the Undersheriff. Every conversation, every notice, every threat. Written communication only. No phone calls unless you're recording them. Get witness statements from the other homeowners. Copy every financial record you can get your hands on. She pulled out a notepad. Started writing. What you're describing isn't just HOA overreach, Gerald. Selective enforcement, excessive fines, threats of foreclosure without due process. If she's targeting specific demographics, retirees, veterans, young families, that could be discrimination. The fines you mentioned. Florida law caps HOA fines at $100 per violation, unless the bylaws explicitly state otherwise. Anything above that needs member approval. She looked up. If Veronica's charging $700, $900, $1,200 without board votes, that's not just aggressive. That could be extortion, possibly fraud. Extortion, fraud. The words hung in the air. But you can't. I can't investigate her while she's targeting my husband. Claudette finished. But if she crosses into criminal conduct, if you document it properly, I won't have a choice. I'll have to report it. That's not favoritism. That's my job. She slid the notepad across to me. Tomorrow morning, first thing, install security cameras. 3 minimum. Front yard, driveway, and covering those palms she's obsessed with. Make sure you post notices. Florida is a 2-party consent state for audio, but video on your property is legal as long as you disclose it. I read her list. Cameras, written communication, witness statements, financial records. Call a property rights attorney, she continued. There are firms in Tampa that specialize in HOA abuse. They'll know Florida statute inside and out. If Veronica's violating the law, they'll catch it. She paused, looked at me with those eyes I'd fallen in love with 40 years ago. Gerald, I can't use my badge for this, but I can use my experience. And my experience tells me that Veronica Ashford is walking a very thin line between civil harassment and criminal conduct. All you have to do is document when she crosses it. I nodded. The meeting tomorrow night? Good. Build your coalition. Strength in numbers. But keep me out of it for now. If this escalates, when it escalates, I'll be ready. But right now, this is your fight. She stood, kissed my forehead. 32 years running into burning buildings taught you how to handle emergencies. Consider this an emergency. And Gerald? She smiled. You've never lost a battle when you had a plan. Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. The security camera installer arrived. By 11:30, I had 3 cameras operational. Front yard, driveway, palm trees, all posted with proper disclosure signs. At 11:47, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered, put it on speaker, started recording. Mr. Townsend. Veronica's voice, ice cold. I see you've installed surveillance equipment without HOA architectural approval. That's a $500 fine. I kept my voice calm. Florida law doesn't require HOA approval for security equipment on private property. Statute 720-3075, subsection 4. Silence. Then, your payment is now 26 hours overdue. Your balance is $1,400. Pay by 6 p.m. tonight, or I'm filing a lien on Friday morning. She hung up. I looked at Claudette. She was standing in the doorway, coffee in hand, watching. She didn't say anything, just pointed at the security monitor. I pulled up the feed. There, parked across the street, was Veronica's BMW. Windows tinted, engine running. She'd been sitting there, watching my house, watching the installer. Claudette's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. She's watching you, Gerald. She's been watching this whole time. The camera timestamp showed her car had been there for 23 minutes. 23 minutes of surveillance. Waiting to see what I'd do. Then calling the moment the installer left. This wasn't just aggressive HOA enforcement. This was personal. This was stalking. If your spouse had the power to help but couldn't use it without ethical violations, how would you handle it? Tell me below. Thursday morning, anniversary day. I hired Miguel Reyes to trim the palms, not knowing I was sending a good man to his death. His truck pulled into my driveway at 7:30 a.m. White Ford F-250. Reyes Tree Services, painted on the side in green letters. Licensed, insured. I'd called 3 companies yesterday. Miguel had the best reviews and could come today. He stepped out, 41, maybe 5'7", weathered hands, smile that reached his eyes. Mr. Townsend? He shook my hand, firm grip, calloused palms. Miguel Reyes. Let's take a look at these palms. We walked the property. The sun was turning the lake water behind my cabin into liquid gold. Perfect morning. Temperature already 82 degrees. Humidity climbing. Miguel stopped at the first palm. Looked up. 40 feet tall. Fronds hanging over the roofline, just like the violation notice said. Royal palms, he said, running his hand along the trunk. Beautiful trees. Healthy. But yes, those fronds need trimming. 2 hours, Mr. Townsend. I'll have these looking perfect for your party. His English carried an accent, soft, clear. I'd learned from his website that he'd come from Honduras 18 years ago. Legal resident, 3 daughters, ages 8, 12, and 14. Ran his business for 15 years. Never had an accident. Never had a complaint. I paid him $400 cash, half up front like he requested. "Thank you," he said, tucking the bills into his wallet. Behind the cash, I saw photos. 3 girls, all smiling. He unloaded his equipment from the truck. Climbing spikes, safety harness, professional grade, dual attachment points. Helmet with face shield. Chainsaw secured to his belt. Ground tarp for debris. Orange safety cones that he placed in the driveway. Everything methodical. Everything safe. "You've done this before," I said, watching him check each piece of equipment twice. He smiled. 15 years, Mr. Townsend. Safety first, always. I have 3 daughters waiting for me to come home. I helped him set up, held his equipment bag, made sure nothing disrupted the work zone. On my porch, anniversary decorations waited. Balloons, streamers. Welcome banner for Claudette's family. They'd land at Tampa International at 2 p.m. Catering truck scheduled for noon. 40 guests confirmed for 3 p.m. 37 years of marriage. Finally getting the celebration we'd planned. Miguel strapped on his harness, double-checked the attachment points, clipped his chainsaw to his belt, looked up at the first palm. 2 hours, he said again. You'll have the cleanest palms in the neighborhood. He started climbing. 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. His movements were fluid, confident, a man who'd done this 1,000 times. At 40 feet, he reached the fronds, positioned himself, attached his safety line to the trunk, called down, "Starting now, Mr. Townsend. Stay clear of the drop zone." I stepped back, watched, anxiety building, not from the height, but from waiting for Veronica. She'd threatened an inspection at 2 p.m. Would she come early? Would she try to stop the work? My phone buzzed. Text from Tom Briggs. "Veronica just left her house, heading your direction. Be ready." I looked at my watch. 9:42 a.m. Miguel was 40 feet up, chainsaw running, cutting the first frond cluster. And then I saw it, the BMW. Veronica's car turned onto my street. Slowly, deliberately, she parked at the curb, directly in front of my property. Engine shut off. Door opened. I knew, with the absolute certainty that comes from 3 decades of emergency response, that this was about to go catastrophically wrong. Have you ever felt dread in your gut because you knew trouble was coming? That moment when you can't stop what's about to happen? Tell me about that feeling. She didn't walk onto my property. She stormed it like an invasion force, and her voice shattered everything. Veronica crossed my property line without hesitation, heels clicking on pavement, phone already in her hand like a weapon. "Stop this immediately!" Her voice was loud, piercing. Miguel, 40 feet above us, jerked his head down to see what was happening. "Mr. Townsend, you do not have approval for tree work. This is illegal activity, and I'm calling code enforcement right now." I stepped between her and the palm, kept my voice calm. "Veronica, you're trespassing. Miguel is licensed and insured. The work is legal. You need to leave my property." She didn't stop. She moved closer, pointing up at Miguel, phone raised like she was filming. "You think you can ignore me?" Her face was red, rage distorting her features. "I'll have this property seized. I'll file a lien today. Her voice reached a pitch that cut through the chainsaw noise. Miguel looked down, startled, confused. His left hand released the safety line. Instinct, shielding his face from falling debris. His right hand slipped on the sweat-slick chainsaw handle. Time compressed. His body tilted backward. The safety harness, attached to only one anchor point while he repositioned, didn't catch fast enough. His gloved hands grabbed for the trunk. Missed. He fell. 40 feet. I saw his eyes. Wide. Knowing. The impact on the brick patio was a sound I'll never forget. Bone meeting brick, final, absolute. I dropped to my knees beside him. Firefighter training kicked in automatically. Check pulse, weak, thready. Check breathing, shallow, labored. Stabilize head and neck. Don't move him. Call 911. Blood pooled under his head. His leg bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. His eyes were open, but unfocused. Miguel, stay with me. Help's coming. Claudette ran from inside the house. Still in her undersheriff uniform, she'd been leaving for work. She saw Miguel, saw the blood, saw Veronica standing frozen 10 feet away. Her training took over. She knelt beside me, checked his vitals, spoke into her radio. Dispatch, this is Undersheriff Townsend. I need EMS to 4782 Lakeside Drive immediately. We have a fall victim, approximately 40 feet. Head trauma, unconscious, but breathing. Expedite. Veronica's voice cut through the chaos. Ice cold, no shock, no horror, just calculation. She was speaking into her phone, not to code enforcement, to 911. Yes, I need police and ambulance at 4782 Lakeside Drive. A homeowner's negligence just caused a contractor to fall from a tree. The man is seriously injured. The property owner should be arrested for reckless endangerment. I stared at her, couldn't process what I was hearing. Miguel was dying on my patio, and she was demanding my arrest. Claudette looked up, her face a mask of professional calm. But I knew that look. I'd seen it maybe twice in 37 years. Pure, controlled, fury. Ma'am, Claudette said, her voice level. Step away from the scene, now. The ambulance arrived 6 minutes later. Fire station 2 miles away. I knew every paramedic by name. They worked fast. Intubation, IV lines, spine board, trauma protocols I'd performed 1,000 times from the other side. Miguel's eyes fluttered. He whispered something in Spanish, then nothing. They loaded him onto the gurney, lights and sirens screaming as they pulled away. 15 miles to Lakeland Regional Hospital. I stood there. Blood on my hands, anniversary decorations mocking me from the porch. Veronica was still on her phone, pacing my driveway. Yes, officer. I'm the HOA president. I witnessed the entire incident. This man was performing illegal work without approval. Claudette stepped beside me, her badge catching the sun. Gerald, she said quietly, do not say anything. Not one word. The deputies about to arrive work for me. Veronica finally noticed the badge on my wife's chest. Her face went white. Have you ever witnessed someone cause a tragedy and then immediately blame the victim? How did you react? Drop your story below. The color drained from Veronica's face the moment she saw my wife's badge. But she was already too deep to stop. 2 patrol units arrived within 4 minutes of each other. Sergeant Rita Hayes, 22 years on the force. Patrol supervisor. I'd met her at department holiday parties. Solid cop, fair but thorough. Deputy Brandon Cole, 6 years. Accident reconstruction trained. They both stepped out of their vehicles. Eyes immediately going to Claudette, their direct supervisor. Then to me, covered in Miguel's blood. Then to Veronica, still talking on her phone, gesturing at the palm tree. Hayes's face showed nothing, but I saw her hand move to her body camera, deliberately activating it. Ma'am, Hayes said to Veronica, voice professional and cold. Please end your phone call. We need your statement about what occurred here. Veronica hung up, straightened her shoulders. Officers, I'm Veronica Ashford, president of the Coral Pines Homeowners Association. She pointed at me. This man was conducting illegal tree work without HOA approval. I came to stop the violation, and the contractor fell due to Mr. Townsend's negligence and failure to follow proper safety protocols. I demand you arrest him for reckless endangerment, possibly manslaughter if that man dies." The words hung in the air. Hayes turned to Claudette. "Undersheriff, were you present during the incident?" Claudette's voice stayed steady. "Professional. I was inside the residence. I heard shouting, came outside, and found Mr. Reyes on the ground with my husband rendering aid. I did not witness the fall." Hayes nodded, turned back to Veronica. "Ma'am, you're aware this is Undersheriff Townsend's residence?" The information hit Veronica like cold water. Her eyes darted between Claudette's badge and my blood-stained hands. Undersheriff? I didn't. That doesn't change the fact that..." Her voice wavered. Hayes cut her off. "Ma'am, your 911 call alleged criminal negligence. That creates a mandatory investigation. We'll need your full statement, any evidence you have, and documentation of your authority to be on this property." Deputy Cole's radio crackled. "Unit 447, be advised Lakeland Regional reports the patient from your location has expired. Time of death, 10:23 a.m. Me has been notified." The world stopped. Miguel was dead. Veronica's face went white. My knees nearly buckled. Claudette's hand on my shoulder kept me upright. "This is now a death investigation," Hayes said, her voice carrying new weight. "Deputy Cole, secure the scene. I need photos of the equipment, the fall zone, and the tree." She turned to Veronica. "Ma'am, I need you to step over here. You're a witness, possibly more." Veronica's voice cracked. "More? What does that mean?" Hayes didn't answer. She was already on her radio. "Dispatch, I need a detective to 4782 Lakeside Drive. We have a workplace fatality with witness complications." 20 minutes later, Detective William Grant arrived. Homicide Division, 18 years experience, known for meticulous case building. He walked the scene, examined Miguel's equipment, harness, ropes, chainsaw, all in perfect condition. Then he looked at me. "Mr. Townsend, I understand you have security cameras?" I nodded. 3 angles, installed yesterday. All footage is saved." Something shifted in his expression. "I'm going to need to see that footage, all of it." He turned to Veronica. "Ms. Ashford, I understand you were on this property when the deceased fell. I'm going to need you to come to the station for a formal statement." Veronica's voice shook. "Am I under arrest?" Grant's face showed nothing. "Not yet. But I strongly suggest you bring an attorney. Have you ever seen someone realize they just created their own nightmare? What goes through their head in that moment? Tell me what you think." By Thursday afternoon, Veronica's accusations against me had become an investigation into her, and she had no idea how much evidence I'd already collected. Detective Grant sat in my living room, laptop open, watching the security camera footage. 3 angles. Driveway camera, Veronica's BMW pulling up, her stepping out, crossing my property line without permission. Front yard camera, her approaching while shouting, phone raised, arm pointing upward. Palm tree camera, the confrontation, her screaming. Miguel's head turning, the fall. The audio was crystal clear. Grant rewound it for the 3rd time. His face stayed neutral, but I saw the tension in his jaw. "Mr. Townsend," he said quietly, "this footage shows Miss Ashford trespassing, disrupting authorized work, and creating the distraction that preceded the fall." He paused, looked at me. "Combined with your documentation of her harassment pattern?" He tapped the binder I'd given him. "This changes everything." Outside on my lawn, an OSHA investigator was examining Miguel's equipment. Climbing harness, inspected, rated, no defects. Backup safety lines, proper grade, undamaged. Chainsaw, maintained, all safety features functional. Helmet and gloves, regulation standard. The OSHA investigator stood, walked over to Grant. Detective, preliminary assessment. Equipment is professional grade and properly maintained. No mechanical failure evident. This appears to be a distraction-related accident. Grant nodded, made notes. Tom Briggs arrived at 2:15 p.m. Mrs. Henderson right behind him. The Chens 5 minutes later. Each gave written statements. Tom's was particularly damning. Ms. Ashford told me in June that if I didn't pay my fines, she'd make my life so miserable I'd be forced to sell. She said she had connections at the county and could make problems disappear or create them. Grant read it twice. Mr. Briggs, you're willing to testify to this under oath? Absolutely. At 3:00 p.m., Grant's phone rang. He stepped outside, came back 2 minutes later. Medical examiner's preliminary findings, he said. Cause of death, massive head trauma and internal bleeding from 40-foot fall. Contributing factor, sudden loss of grip and balance consistent with startle response. He closed his laptop. Mr. Townsend, based on the evidence, security footage, equipment inspection, witness statements, and the pattern of harassment you've documented, I'm not charging you with anything. The evidence is clear. You followed all proper protocols. Ms. Ashford trespassed and created the distraction. Her pattern of harassment establishes motive for reckless behavior. He stood. However, I am opening an investigation into Ms. Ashford for involuntary manslaughter, reckless endangerment, and based on this documentation, he tapped my binder, possible fraud and extortion. As he walked to his car, Claudette's phone rang. She answered, listened, and then looked at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Cold satisfaction. That was Miguel's wife. She just hired a Tampa attorney who specializes in wrongful death and civil rights violations. She paused. The attorney is Carlos Mendez. He's never lost a case. Hit that subscribe button because what happens next will blow your mind. Veronica has no idea that her 911 call demanding my arrest is about to become evidence of her crimes. If you had video proof that someone lied to police about you, what would you do with it? How would you feel watching them dig their own grave? Tell me below. Carlos Mendez didn't just take Miguel's case. He took it apart like a crime scene, and what he found buried in HOA records would destroy Veronica completely. He arrived at my cabin Friday morning, 24 hours after Miguel's death. Leather briefcase, eyes that missed nothing, an intensity that filled the room. He sat across from Miguel's widow, Rosa, held her hand, spoke to her in fluid Spanish while she cried. Then he turned to me. Mr. Townsend, tell me everything about this woman, everything. Because I'm going to take everything from her. His voice wasn't angry. It was absolute. Friday afternoon, he filed emergency subpoenas. 3 years of HOA financial records. All board meeting minutes. Veronica's personal correspondence as HOA president. Contractor payment records. Insurance claims history. Every violation notice issued during her tenure. Florida law required compliance within 10 business days. But Mendez's wrongful death claim accelerated the timeline. 72 hours. Monday morning, the HOA records arrived. Mendez spread them across my dining table. Hundreds of pages, financial statements, meeting minutes, payment vouchers. Within 2 hours, he found the first red flag. LM Property Management Services, $31,000 paid over 18 months for compliance enforcement and violation documentation. He Googled the company. Registered owner, Veronica M. Ashford. Registration date, 1 week after she became HOA president. Mendez looked up. She's been paying herself. He went deeper. Ashford Consulting LLC, $8,200 for architectural review services. VM Enterprises, $12,400 for landscaping oversight. All registered to Veronica, all paid without board approval. Total embezzlement, $51,600 over 18 months. But that wasn't all. Mendez found 3 entries labeled Legal Settlement Confidential, $18,000, $24,000, $31,000, total $73,000, paid between 14 and 28 months ago. He cross-referenced dates with property records, contractor licensing databases. A pattern emerged. 3 contractors, 3 injuries, 3 properties, all during work performed under pressure from Veronica's violation deadlines. Antonio Ruiz, painter, fell from ladder, broken arm, concussion, settlement, $18,000, NDA attached. James Peterson, roofer, heat exhaustion and fall, dislocated shoulder, fractured ribs, settlement, $24,000, hidden in emergency maintenance budget. David Chen, electrician, electrical shock requiring hospitalization, settlement, $31,000, buried in legal fees. Mendez laid it all out on the table. She creates impossible deadlines, threatens massive fines, forces homeowners to hire contractors who rush work under pressure. Contractors get injured. She uses HOA money to quietly settle claims and hide her liability. He looked at Rosa, at me, at Claudette. She's done this 4 times now. Miguel is the 4th. His voice dropped. Except this time, the contractor died. And this time, she picked a victim whose wife can investigate her for embezzlement. Rosa spoke for the first time since he'd arrived, her voice broken but steady. Can you make her pay? Mendez's eyes never left hers. Mrs. Reyes, I'm filing a wrongful death lawsuit against Veronica Ashford personally and the HOA for $4.7 million, but there's something else. He turned to Claudette. Undersheriff, this isn't just civil liability. This is criminal. Pattern of reckless endangerment, fraud, embezzlement, obstruction of justice through NDAs. He closed his laptop. I'm filing a formal complaint with the state attorney's office today. By tomorrow, Veronica Ashford won't just be fighting a lawsuit, she'll be fighting felony charges. If this justice moment just gave you chills, hit that share button. Everyone dealing with HOA nightmares needs to see what happens when Karens finally face consequences. Have you ever discovered that someone's accident was actually part of a pattern they'd been hiding? How did it change everything? Drop your story. News of Miguel's death and Veronica's crimes spread through Coral Pines like wildfire. And the community that had been too terrified to speak finally found its voice. By Tuesday morning, 47 homeowners had signed a petition demanding emergency board meeting, demanding answers about financial irregularities and presidential misconduct. Florida HOA law was clear. If 20% of members requested an emergency meeting, the board had 7 days to hold it. The petition had 54% support. Thursday evening, community center meeting room. I'd never seen it this full. Every chair taken. People standing along the walls, voices rising in anger as the 5 board members took their seats at the front table. Veronica sat at the center, her usual confidence replaced by rigid tension. The air crackled with fury. Robert Chen, treasurer, retired accountant, opened the meeting. I've reviewed the financial records Mr. Mendez subpoenaed. His voice shook. I had no knowledge of these payments to Ms. Ashford's companies. I never approved them. The board never voted on them. He looked at Veronica. This is not how we operate. Jennifer Walsh, secretary, 12 years on the board, spoke next, tears in her eyes. I was told those settlements were for legitimate insurance claims. Veronica handled them directly. She said member notification wasn't required. Her voice broke. I trusted her legal expertise. I was wrong. Gerald stood, presented his documentation. The binder was 3 inches thick now. Security footage played on the projection screen. Veronica trespassing, screaming at Miguel. The moment Miguel fell, the room went silent. Someone sobbed. Tom Briggs stood. She did the same thing to me, threatened, harassed, fined me illegally. I paid $900 I didn't owe because I was scared. His voice rose. How many others did she terrorize? 13 homeowners stood. One by one, they shared their stories. $7,400 in illegal fines collected across the room. 4 families forced to sell. 2 facing foreclosure. 1 elderly man hospitalized for stress-induced heart problems. The pattern was undeniable. At the back of the room, Rosa Reyes stood. Her 3 daughters beside her, all in black. She didn't speak, didn't have to. Her presence was a silent indictment. Veronica wouldn't look at her. Veronica tried to speak. These accusations are coordinated attacks by disgruntled residents who refuse to follow. Robert Chen cut her off. Ms. Ashford, you paid yourself $51,600 in HOA funds without authorization. You settled 3 contractor injury claims without board knowledge. And now a man is dead because of your harassment. His voice was steel. You're not defending yourself. You're done. Motion to immediately suspend Veronica from all HOA duties pending investigation. Vote 4-0. Veronica abstained, visibly shaking. Motion to demand full restitution of unauthorized payments. Vote 4-0. Motion to refer all findings to State Attorney for criminal investigation. Vote 4-0. Veronica stood, grabbed her briefcase, and fled the room. Applause filled the space. As the crowd filed out, Robert Chen pulled me aside. Gerald, there's something else you need to know. He handed me printed pages. I've been going through Veronica's emails, the ones the subpoena forced her to turn over. Read this one from 6 months ago. It was an email to the board from the previous HOA president. A warning. Veronica Ashford has expressed concerning views about improving the community demographic and encouraging certain residents to relocate. I strongly advise against electing her to leadership. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about power. This was about who she thought deserved to live here. Have you ever been in a room when a bully finally faced the crowd they'd terrorized? What does that energy feel like? Tell me your experience. Cornered and exposed, Veronica didn't retreat. She attacked, and her desperation made her more dangerous than ever. Friday morning, the day after the board stripped her power. Veronica posted on Nextdoor at 6:47 a.m. Urgent. Coral Pines residents need to know the truth. Gerald Townsend's wife is abusing her position as Undersheriff to conduct a witch hunt against me because I enforced rules her husband didn't want to follow. A tragic accident is being weaponized for personal revenge. The contractor's death is being exploited. I'm being targeted because I stood up for our community standards. Don't let police corruption destroy our neighborhood. The post went live. Within 30 minutes, 47 comments appeared, 43 supporting me. Tom Briggs posted the security footage link. Detective Grant had released it as public record. Mrs. Henderson posted photos of her $1,200 fine for garden gnomes. The Chens posted their swing set violation. Veronica's narrative collapsed in real time, but she didn't stop. She created a throwaway Facebook account. Posted in Polk County Community Watch. Local undersheriff's husband caused contractor death. Wife using badge to cover it up. Media needs to investigate corruption in sheriff's office. She included my address. The post was reported within hours, flagged, removed, but screenshots existed. Saturday morning, Veronica tried something more direct. She attempted to withdraw $15,000 from the HOA operating account. The transaction note read, "Legal defense against false allegations threatening the association." The bank manager called Robert Chen. His name was on the account as treasurer. Chen froze Veronica's access immediately, filed a fraud alert, called the state attorney's office, attempted theft while already under investigation. Sunday afternoon, she came to my house. Not aggressive this time, desperate. She parked at the curb. Security cameras rolling, walked to my door. Rang the bell, I opened it. Claudette stood behind me. "Mr. Townsend." Veronica's voice cracked. "This has gone too far. That man's death was a tragic accident. You're destroying my life over a misunderstanding." She looked at both of us, eyes red, hands shaking. "If you drop the criminal complaints and tell that attorney to withdraw the lawsuit, I'll resign from the board and forgive all your fines. Please, I'm begging you." 37 years of marriage taught me to recognize when Claudette was holding back fury. Her hand tightened on my shoulder. I kept my voice quiet, but absolute. "Veronica, Miguel Reyes had 3 daughters. The youngest is 8 years old. She'll never see her father again because you couldn't control your need to bully people." I stepped closer to the threshold. "You trespassed on my property, screamed at a man working 40 feet in the air, caused his death. Then you tried to have me arrested for it. You embezzled HOA funds. You injured 3 other contractors and covered it up." I looked her in the eyes. "And now you want mercy? You should have thought about that before you started this war. Leave my property. Don't come back." Her face changed. The desperation vanished. Cold rage replaced it. "You'll regret this, Townsend. Both of you. I have friends. I have resources. This isn't over." She turned toward her car. As she reached for the door handle, a Polk County Sheriff's vehicle pulled up behind her BMW. Detective Grant stepped out. "Ms. Ashford, I need you to come with me. The state attorney has issued a warrant for your arrest." When someone who hurt you finally faces arrest, is it satisfying? Or does it feel heavier than you expected? Tell me what justice feels like. Veronica's arraignment was supposed to be routine. But what happened in that courtroom proved that privilege can't buy your way out of accountability. Monday, 9 a.m., Polk County Courthouse. The gallery was packed. Coral Pines residents, local media. Cameras outside. Veronica entered in an Orange County jumpsuit, hands cuffed, hair disheveled. First time anyone had seen her without perfect composure. Judge Patricia Moreno presiding. 25 years on the bench, known for no-nonsense approach to white-collar crime. She reviewed the charges without expression. Involuntary manslaughter, reckless endangerment causing death, grand theft over $50,000, fraud, obstruction of justice. 5 felonies. Potential sentence, 27 years. Veronica's attorney stood, expensive suit, confident posture. "Your Honor, my client is a respected attorney with deep community ties, no prior record and no flight risk. We request release on recognizance." The prosecutor, Assistant State Attorney Jennifer Park, stood immediately. "Your Honor, the defendant has access to substantial assets. Bank accounts totaling $127,000, a mansion valued at $890,000. She has no family ties in Florida. Parents in Georgia, no children, divorced 3 years ago. Her Georgia bar license gives her ability to practice law in another state. Park laid a document on the bench. Most concerning, emails we recovered show the defendant researching countries without extradition treaties 2 days after Mr. Reyes's death. She is absolutely a flight risk. Judge Moreno read the emails. Her expression didn't change. But her voice carried new weight. Bail is set at $500,000 cash bond. Conditions: surrender passport immediately, GPS ankle monitor, no contact with 87 witnesses, including all Coral Pines residents, no access to HOA property or records, employment restricted to legal work unrelated to HOA matters. Veronica's face went white. Her parents posted bail Tuesday, used their Georgia home as collateral. Wednesday morning, she walked out. Ankle monitor visible under her pants. Privilege stripped to its foundation. Carlos Mendez moved fast on the civil case. Depositions, board members, contractors, homeowners. 4 board members testified they had no knowledge of Veronica's unauthorized payments. Jennifer Walsh cried on the record. She told me she had authority. I trusted her. The 3 injured contractors confirmed everything. Pressure tactics, impossible deadlines, threats. Thursday, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Robert Chen presented the analysis. Our insurance covers up to $2 million for wrongful death. Our attorney advises settling with Mrs. Reyes immediately. We can't defend Veronica's actions. Trial would expose us to punitive damages exceeding our coverage. His voice was steady. We need to make this right. Vote to offer Rosa's family $2.3 million for Nero. But the settlement specifically excluded Veronica from liability protection. She faced Carlos Mendez's lawsuit personally, an additional $2.4 million. Her homeowner's insurance denied coverage, intentional acts exclusion. She was financially exposed, completely alone. Friday afternoon, her mansion went on the market. $890,000. Desperate sale. That same day, the Florida bar opened an ethics investigation. Her legal career, her home, her freedom, all crumbling. And the trial hadn't even started. Have you ever watched someone who thought they were untouchable realize they're completely alone? What does that look like? Share your thoughts. 4 months later, Veronica Ashford walked into a courtroom to face the consequences of her cruelty, and 12 jurors who would decide if privilege protects you from justice. State of Florida versus Veronica Marie Ashford. Judge Moreno presiding. Jury selected. 7 women, 5 men, ages 34 to 71. The courtroom felt smaller than it looked on TV. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights. Jury box close enough to see every face. Veronica sat at the defense table in a conservative gray suit, trying to project confidence, but her hands shook when she gripped her pen. Her eyes never left the table. The jury watched her, already judging. Prosecutor Park stood for opening statements. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about what happens when someone with a little power decides rules don't apply to them, and a good man dies because of it. She walked toward the jury. Veronica Ashford wasn't just an HOA president. She was a bully with a law degree who terrorized her neighbors, stole their money, and created the conditions that killed Miguel Reyes. She gestured to Rosa, sitting in the front row. Over the next week, you'll see security footage of her trespassing and screaming at a man working 40 feet in the air. You'll hear from families she bankrupted. You'll see financial records proving she stole over $50,000. And you'll hear from Miguel's widow about the moment she learned her husband was never coming home. Park returned to her table. When you've seen all the evidence, we'll ask you to hold Ms. Ashford accountable for every choice she made that led to Miguel's death. The defense attorney stood, made his attempt. This is a tragedy. No one disputes that. Miguel Reyes's death was an accident, a terrible accident. But accidents aren't crimes. He looked at the jury. Ms. Ashford was doing her job as HOA president. Was she passionate? Yes. Did she push too hard? Perhaps. But did she intend for anyone to get hurt? Absolutely not. His voice tried for sympathy. The prosecution wants you to believe that raising your voice makes you a murderer. We trust you'll see the truth. Day 1. Security footage. 3 angles. Crystal clear audio. The jury watched Veronica storm my property, watched her scream, watched Miguel's head turn. The video stopped before impact. Too graphic. 2 jurors cried. Veronica stared at her hands. Day 2. My testimony. I walked the jury through 18 months, 8 families, $2,700 in illegal fines, 3 forced sales. The security cameras I installed the day before Miguel died. Cross-examination tried to paint me as vindictive. It failed. 32 years as a firefighter gave me composure they couldn't shake. Day 3. The forensic accountant. Shell companies. Unauthorized contracts. $51,600 stolen. 3 hidden settlements totaling $73,000. Veronica's attorney couldn't rebut bank records. Day 4. The 3 injured contractors. Antonio Ruiz cried on the stand. She told me I had 48 hours or the homeowner would lose her house. I rushed. I fell. She paid me to stay quiet. Day 5. Rosa testified. Translators provided. Her voice steady but breaking. He kissed each daughter. Told them he'd be home for lunch. He never came home. The courtroom was silent. 3 jurors openly wept. Against her attorney's advice, Veronica took the stand. Tried to explain her actions as dedication to community standards. Prosecutor Park destroyed her in cross-examination. Ms. Ashford, you paid yourself $51,600 without board approval. Is that dedication? You hid 3 contractor injuries. Is that community service? You trespassed and screamed at a man 40 feet in the air. Is that professional conduct? Veronica's composure cracked. She snapped at Park. Judge Moreno warned her. The jury saw the real Veronica. Entitled, angry, unapologetic. Closing arguments took 30 minutes. Jury deliberated 4 hours. They returned. On the charge of involuntary manslaughter, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of reckless endangerment causing death? Guilty. Grand theft? Guilty. Fraud? Guilty. Obstruction of justice? Guilty. 5 for 5. Veronica collapsed into her chair. Rosa closed her eyes, tears streaming. Justice. Partial, but real. Have you ever watched justice happen in real time? That moment when a jury says guilty and everything changes? Tell me how that feels. 3 weeks after her conviction, Veronica stood before the judge one final time and learned that stealing from a dead man's family was the worst decision she'd ever made. Sentencing hearing. Judge Moreno's courtroom packed. Veronica, in orange jumpsuit again, couldn't post bond after the guilty verdict. Rosa stood at the podium. Her 3 daughters seated behind her, holding hands. Her voice was steady, but her pain absolute. Your Honor, Veronica Ashford took my husband from us. She took my daughter's father. She took our provider, our protector, our everything. She paused. And after she was found guilty, she tried to hide money so we couldn't even receive the compensation the law says we deserve. She has shown no remorse. She deserves no mercy. I spoke next. Your Honor, I'm a retired firefighter. I spent 32 years running into burning buildings to save people. I believed in community, in neighbors helping neighbors. I looked at Veronica. Hey, Veronica Ashford poisoned that. She turned our neighborhood into a place of fear. 8 families suffered. Miguel Reyes died. And even after being found guilty, she tried to cheat his family. My voice was steady. She deserves every day of prison she receives. Prosecutor Park addressed the court. Your Honor, 3 days ago we filed additional charges. Ms. Ashford wired $340,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, attempting to shield funds from the civil judgment. Additional criminal conduct occurring after her conviction. Veronica's attorney made a weak plea for leniency. Judge Moreno's voice cut like steel. Counsel, this was not a civil dispute. Your client embezzled over $50,000, harassed multiple families, covered up 3 previous contractor injuries, and caused a man's death. Then she tried to defraud his widow. She looked at Veronica. Ms. Ashford, please stand. Veronica stood, shaking. On the charge of involuntary manslaughter, 12 years Florida State Prison. Reckless endangerment causing death, 5 years. Concurrent. Grand theft and fraud, 5 years each, consecutive. Obstruction of justice, 3 years, concurrent. Total sentence, 22 years, Florida Department of Corrections. The courtroom was silent. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution of $124,600 to the Coral Pines Homeowners Association and $2.4 million to the Reyes family. Your Florida bar license is hereby revoked. Veronica's voice was barely audible. 22 years? Judge Moreno didn't flinch. You didn't mean for Miguel Reyes to die. But he's dead. You didn't mean to get caught stealing. But you stole. You didn't mean to face consequences. But consequences have found you. She nodded to the bailiff. Remand the defendant. Deputies led Veronica away. She didn't look back. The following week, federal marshals seized everything. Recovered the $340,000 from the Cayman account, liquidated her remaining property. Total recovery, $407,000. Rosa received her first payment. The new HOA board implemented reforms, mandatory financial audits. All fines require full board vote. Maximum fine, 100, warning system before penalties, transparency, accountability, protection. The community was healing. 22 years in prison. Was it justice, or was it too much? What do you think the right sentence would have been? Drop your answer below. 2 years after Miguel's death, I stood in the same spot where he fell. But this time, I wasn't alone, and the community around me had transformed. The garden occupied the exact spot where Miguel hit the brick patio. Rosa chose the design herself. Circular brick patio, replacing the blood-stained original. Surrounded by flowering plants Miguel loved, centered by a bronze plaque. It read, Miguel Reyes, 1984 to 2095. Beloved father, dedicated worker, community member. His sacrifice led to justice and reform. His memory inspires us to stand against abuse of power. 87 people attended, nearly every Coral Pines resident. Rosa's daughters, now 10, 14, and 16, placed flowers at the base, their faces showing grief, but also strength. Carlos Mendez stood beside Rosa. The Miguel Reyes Memorial Scholarship Fund has been established with $100,000 in initial funding, donated by community members, matched by the Florida Contractors Association. He smiled at Rosa's daughters. This scholarship will provide 4-year college funding for children of workers in construction, landscaping, and trades. The first 3 recipients are Miguel's daughters, Applications open next month for other eligible students statewide. Robert Chen addressed the crowd. 2 years ago, our community was sick, poisoned by fear, controlled by cruelty. Miguel's death was the wake-up call we needed. He gestured around. Today, Coral Pines has 0 pending violations, 0 outstanding fines, 96% homeowner satisfaction with our HOA, the highest in Polk County. We've become a model for what HOAs should be. Servants of the community, not dictators over it. I spoke about the legislation. Miguel's story reached the Florida State Legislature. Next month, they're voting on the Miguel Reyes HOA Reform Act. Financial audits of all HOAs, capped fine amounts, appeals processes, state ombudsman for homeowner complaints. I looked at Rosa. 17 other states are watching. If it passes, Miguel's death will protect millions of homeowners. That's legacy. Rosa stood, spoke in English, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. My husband came to America for opportunity. He worked every day to give our daughters better lives. Veronica Ashford took him from us. She looked around at all of us. But this community, you, gave us something back. You fought for justice. You supported us. You made sure Miguel's death meant something. My daughters are healing. I'm healing. We will never forget Miguel. But we can move forward knowing good people still exist. She smiled, tears on her cheeks. Thank you. The family who bought Veronica's foreclosed mansion introduced themselves. Young couple, 2 kids. Flagpole in the front yard. 3 flags. American, Florida State, Pride flag. We heard about what happened here, the husband said. We almost didn't buy because of the history. But everyone said Coral Pines had changed, that it was safe now, that the community protects each other. His wife nodded. We're glad we came. Applause filled the garden. That evening, I stood on my porch, Claudette beside me, watching the sun set over the lake. Do you regret it? She asked. Fighting Veronica, everything that happened? I thought about Miguel's daughters placing flowers, about Rosa's strength, about legislation that might save lives. No, I regret that Miguel paid the price. But I don't regret standing up, because silence would have meant more victims, and I couldn't live with that. Here's what 18 months taught me. Power without accountability always becomes abuse. Bullies count on your silence, your fear, your belief that they're too strong to challenge. But they're not. They're brittle. And when one person says no, when one person refuses to be a victim, everything changes. Not easily, not without cost, but it changes. Miguel Reyes didn't choose to be a hero. He was just a man trying to do his job, support his family, live a quiet life. Veronica Ashford made him a victim. But his death and the fight for justice that followed made him something more. A catalyst, a symbol, a reminder that ordinary people standing together can defeat the tyrants who think power makes them untouchable. So here's my final question for you. When you face injustice, in your neighborhood, your workplace, your community, what will you choose? Silence because it's easier? Or resistance because it's right? Tell me in the comments what you would do if this happened to you. So let me ask you one more time. What would you do if your HOA president thought she controlled your property, your peace, your life? Would you pay the illegal fine out of fear? Would you stay quiet while your neighbors suffered? Or would you stand up, document everything, and fight back even when it costs you everything? Here's the truth about bullies with clipboards and bylaws. They're still bullies. They count on your exhaustion, your confusion, Your belief that the system protects them more than it protects you. But here's what Veronica Ashford learned too late. One person refusing to be afraid can burn down an empire built on fear. And when that person has evidence, allies, and the courage to see it through, the bully doesn't just lose. They face consequences that echo for years. If this story fired you up, if it made you think about your own HOA or your own neighborhood Karen, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more true stories about everyday people standing up to entitled tyrants who think rules don't apply to them. Because justice stories like this prove that bullies can be beaten. Drop a comment telling me, have you dealt with HOA abuse? A power-hungry board president? A Karen who thought she controlled your block? Share your story. I read every single comment, and your experience might help someone else fighting their own battle. Share this video with anyone who's ever been fined for something ridiculous, threatened by their HOA, or told they have no power against the system. They need to know that one person with evidence and determination can change everything. Remember this: your property rights matter. Your home matters. Your peace matters. Your dignity matters. And sometimes, maybe more often than we think, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be a victim. Stand your ground. Document everything. Find your allies. And fight back with every legal tool you have. Because Miguel Reyes deserved better. Rosa and her daughters deserved better. And you deserve better than living in fear of someone who thinks a title makes them a tyrant. This is Ephraim with HOA vs. Karen Stories, and this was how one HOA president's cruelty became her downfall, and how one community found justice for a man who just wanted to trim some palm trees and go home to his family. Until next time, know your rights, protect your property, and never let anyone make you afraid in your own home.